The Philadelphia Eagles, how do you all think they're going to be this year in Jalen Hurts' third year as a Eagles starter quarterback for the Eagles? Do you think they're going to be anything special? Do you think they're going to be good? Do you think they're going to improve on their 9-8 record from a year ago? Is Nick Sirianni, the head coach, going to be able to revamp this team to get to the next level after all those draft picks and the acquirement of AJ Brown? These are a lot of things to really think about as if you are an Eagles fan this year and an Eagles analyst. So this is your boy James here, and we're about to go ahead and analyze the schedule for the 2022-23 season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's take a look and see what we've got. Okay, so we're taking a look at week one. This is the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to the Detroit Lions in the first week of the season. This game can honestly go either way, in my opinion. Last year, the Eagles blew out the Lions in Detroit. I could see this game going either way. I think the Detroit Lions are going to be better this year. I think they're going to win some more games this year than they did a year ago. But this Eagles team is kind of they're a little flashy. I think they're going to be good sometimes, and then other times they may lose to some really bad teams. But not that I really think the Lions are a bad team, but they're a team that a lot of teams beat. And for those reasons, it's mostly because of Detroit's defense is not very good. But I don't know. This game could honestly go either way. It could be a tough one for the Eagles to try and pull out. But with that all being said, I do think they can have that slight advantage of winning against the Detroit Lions on the road. It's not going to be an easy game for either team. I don't think. I think it's going to be a very close and maybe even a low scoring game, to be quite honest with you. But at the end of the day, I think the Eagles just pull out a slight, victory in this game, like a last second field goal or last minute touchdown or something like that to help them come out on top. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win that one in week one. But like I said, I would not be surprised if the Lions did win this game because I do think Detroit is somewhat on the uprise. I think they had a good draft. I think they're heading into the right direction with what they've got. So, but I think the Eagles are going to sneak that one away from them. Then in week two, you got the Minnesota Vikings on a Monday night doubleheader with the Titans and Bills game. The Minnesota Vikings are traveling to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. This is a really good game here. I think this game could go really either way. But I think with the Vikings this year, I think the Vikings are going to be a sleeper team in the NFC. I think they're a very good team as far as who they've got and all the receivers that they have. I think their receiving core is pretty good and more than good. I think they're very solid and maybe even close to the elite, where I don't think the Eagles are going to have an easy time being able to stop receivers like Justin Jefferson or a Dalvin Cook if Dalvin Cook can stay healthy. So I think the Vikings are going to win that Monday night matchup in Philly. I like the way the Vikings are looking. I think Kirk Cousins is a very underrated quarterback. But I think he's due to some really big things this year and get the Vikings back into the playoffs. So I'm going to take the Vikings to win that game. Then in week 13, the Eagles travel to Washington to play the Commanders. I did talk about it in my Washington Commanders season prediction video. I did predict that the team is going to split against each other this year, and I still think that's going to be the case. However, I think the Eagles are going to be a little more figured out, more settled with their offense and defense than Washington is with Carson Wentz, especially early on in the season. So I think the Eagles are going to take that W away from the Commanders and become 2-1 the first 3 weeks of the season. Then you've got week four. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Philly to play the Eagles. I can see this game going either way, to be quite honest with you, because it's a revenge game for Doug Peterson after being fired from the Eagles. I could really see I can see the Jags finding a way to beat the Eagles, but honestly, I think the Eagles just have more. They obviously have more talent. And I think the biggest problems for Jacksonville is mostly they're all over the place. We don't really know what kind of team they're really going to be. I think Doug Peterson's a good coach, but I don't think he's going to turn that team around into a winning team just yet. I think he still has a long ways to go, and I think they need to have a better draft class next year in order to be able to pull off more wins. But I could be wrong. I think I could see the Jags winning this game because of the avenge game for Doug Peterson. But when I did my Jacksonville predictions video, I did pick the Eagles to win, and I'm going to stick with that just because it's in a tough place in Philly. Philly is a really, really, really rowdy place to play. It's very loud in there. So I think the Eagles do win that game against the Jacksonville Jags at home in that Sunday matchup. Then in week 5, this is an interesting matchup and quite an intriguing matchup. You've got the Eagles going to Arizona to play the Cardinals. I think this is going to be an interesting game. And I think the Cardinals are going to kind of make a step back this year in terms of what they were able to do last year. I think they take a step back a little bit. I don't think the Cardinals are as good of a team as they were a year ago. And I think one of the biggest difference makers for them is the passing game, because we're not sure if Kyler Murray is going to be there or not with all the drama that's going on there with him. And and with the suspensions and everything that's going on with DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know how long he's going to be suspended for. So I think those are going to be some big factors into that game when that time comes. So I'm going to take the Eagles to actually beat and kind of do a slight upset over the Cardinals. I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Cardinals this year to really do much of anything, especially really in that packed NFC West division. So I'm going to take that to the Eagles and give them the win there. Then week 6, you've got the Dallas Cowboys coming to Philly to play the Eagles. I did talk about it when I did my Cowboys prediction video. I think the Cowboys are a really on paper right now. I think they're a better team. I also believe that I think with the Eagles and their struggling defense, especially more so in the secondary, and their rush defense is going to be a struggle early on in the season. And I think the Cowboys will take advantage of that every which way possible with using Dak or using Zeke, Tony Pollard, and CeeDee Lamb. I think they're going to give the Eagles some problems in that first matchup. That's going to prevent the Eagles from winning that game. So I'm going to take the Cowboys to win that game against the Eagles at home. And then you're looking at a 4-2 record coming off the bye week in week 7. You have a 4-2 record, which is not looking too bad, honestly. It's a pretty decent record. It's pretty accurate to where I think it's going to be going into the bye week. So you have a 4-2 record, 1-1 in the division, and you're looking pretty solid. You might be able to pull off a playoff run here. But then you go into the Pittsburgh Steelers. You play the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. This is going to be an interesting game, and I did pick the Steelers to win that game in Philly, and the reasoning why I did, because I think Mike Tomlin does a good job with being able to coach against the Eagles, and because there's a lot of questions going on with that defense in Philly, I think the Steelers can make some impact on that. I think they can positively be able to run the ball well with Najee Harris, either whether it's Mitchell Trubisky starting at this point or Kenny Pickett. I don't think it's really going to matter that much. I think the passing game can be successful against this Eagles secondary. So I just think overall they're a better coached team. They may not have as good of a roster offensively as the Eagles do, but I think that defense with TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and all of them is really going to have the Eagles really struggle in that game. So I'm going to pick the Steelers to win that. Then in week 9, it's a Thursday night game. You have the Eagles traveling to the Houston Texans. I did pick the Texans to pull an upset in that game. I think they're going to. They're either going to pull off an upset. They're either going to lose to the Texans or the Jags in this season. And I think they're going to pull off I think they're going to get upset by the Texans on Thursday night, because I think this Texans team does have potential to win at least one of these games in the NFC East, because the NFC East is not very good. And I think the Eagles are one of those teams that are kind of flashy. They're either good or they're not. So, and I think the Texans are going to be able to take advantage of that. And if this is a bad night for the Eagles, I can see the Texans winning this game and pulling off an upset. So I'm going to take Houston to win that game. And then you go into week 10, you have Washington coming to Philly. I did pick Washington in my Washington prediction videos. I think they're going to beat the Eagles on Monday Night Football. I think it's going to be a split game between the two this year. I think Washington's defense is very solid. I think it's going to give Jalen Hurts and company a hard time and being able to do all the things that they know they can do on in at home. So I'm going to take the Washington Commanders to win that game. Then in Week 11, the Philadelphia Eagles play the Indianapolis Colts. Colts should win that game. Honestly, I think they're a more superior team in terms of running and passing the ball, and I think that defense is a very underrated defense in terms of their pass rush. So I think that's going to give Jalen Hurts some pressure in that game against the Colts secondary. So I think the Colts will win that game. And then in Week 12, you have the Green Bay Packers playing in Philly. This is going to be an interesting game. Honestly, this game could honestly go either way. At this point in the season, the Eagles do start to get hot a little bit in terms of their defense, and their offense starts to really start plugging along in this game. And any team that they play. The last time they played the Green Bay Packers was not a very pretty game. Really, they weren't in that game throughout most of the time, and that was the game where Carson Wentz got benched for Jalen Hurts. So I could see this game really going either way. And if it was in Lambeau Field, I would pick the Green Bay Packers. But this is an interesting game because it is in Philly and it's a Sunday night football game, along with the Cowboys traveling to the Eagles for that matter as well. So I don't know. It's kind of a tough game, but I do see the Packers losing more games this year than they did the last few years. So maybe there might be an upset brewing here. I think I'm going to pick the Eagles to actually upset the Packers here because I think the Packers are going to lose more games this year. They're still going to be a good team because of Aaron Rodgers, but I think they're going to lose more games than people think because I think without Devontae Adams, without like an elite offense like they did the last few seasons, really does hurt the Packers. And I think the Eagles might be able to take advantage of that in terms of their defense. They might be able to slow down Rodgers and being able to do the things that they like to do. So I'm going with the Eagles in that. And then same thing with Week 13 when the Titans come to play the Eagles in Philly. That game could honestly go either way as well. I can really see the Eagles finding a way to upset the Titans, especially if they can stop the running game with Derrick Henry and slow down Ryan Tannehill. So I think that game could honestly go either way, but I picked the Titans to win that game because I think Derrick Henry is going to really give the Eagles defense some problems. I think when you run the ball a lot, the more times that you do run the ball, the more problems it does give to the other team. So I do think the Titans do find a way to beat the Eagles, but it's going to be a more of a closer game than people really think. So I'm going to take the Titans to win that game against the Eagles. Then Week 14, the Eagles go to face their rivals, the Giants. I did pick the Giants to split with the Eagles this year. I think the Giants win at home and beat them, and I think the Eagles beat the Giants when they go to play in Philly. So I do think this is going to be a year where they're going to split with one another in that aspect. So I think that's what I'm going to do for that. I think the Giants will beat them in Week 14, and then the Eagles will end the season on a strong note by beating them in the last week of the regular season. Then the Eagles go to Chicago to play the Bears. The Bears will be coming off of their bye week. And honestly, I honestly think that because Chicago is a very tough place to play, but Chicago really doesn't look like they're going to be a great team at all. I think they have a lot of struggles on offense and defense. I think their defense is definitely not where it was once before. And I think the Eagles will be able to take advantage of that. So I'm going to take the Eagles to beat the Bears in Chicago because I think right now, and I like Justin Fields, I think he's going to be very successful in the future for Chicago, but I think without all that offensive pieces and that offensive line that's really going to kill them the most, I think the defensive line for the Eagles can get to Justin Fields and be able to get some sacks and turnovers on the Bears. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win that one in Week 15. Then I talked about it in my Cowboys prediction video. This is a Christmas Eve game, I believe, and it is. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win that game against the Dallas Cowboys on the road. I think, honestly, the Cowboys towards the end of the year, they either get hot or they get cold. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win that game. I think it will be a closer game than people really think. It may be higher scoring than people think, or maybe low scoring. I don't really know because I think if anything, it's going to be more of a slugfest at this point in the season as it has been in recent times. So I think the Eagles will find ways to beat the Cowboys on the road. And then you've got the New Orleans Saints going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. Now, this is an interesting game because the last couple of years that the Saints have played on the road in Philly, it has not been very pretty. With Drew Brees or Taysom Hill, it has not been very pretty for either side of the ball. But the Saints are honestly, they're a very underrated and sneaky team that I think can pull off some wins this year. But do I think they will get their revenge on the Eagles? It's kind of hard to tell because Jalen Hurts, the last 2 years when they played the Saints, has played actually pretty well. Honestly, I think if anything, I think Jalen Hurts has put up his best games when it has came to the New Orleans Saints. So would it really shock me if the Eagles won a third straight time? Not really, but do I think the Saints have an opportunity to avenge their loss from the last 2 seasons to the Eagles? Yes, I do. And honestly, I think the Saints are going to find a way to limit Jameis Winston's mistakes. And I do think they can beat the Eagles at home. Just because of that reason, I think the Saints are a good team. I think they're going to be they might be slightly better or around the same. I don't really know for sure, but the Saints are a sneaky game where it could be a trap game for either team. I could see either team winning this game, but I think the Saints at the end of the day, as long as they can run with Alvin Kamara a lot and they limit Jameis Winston's mistakes, I think they do find a way to beat the Eagles finally and Jalen Hurts. So then you're kind of looking at an 8-9 record for the Eagles, which is honestly that could make or break their playoff run, honestly, with this record, depending on who else can get to that record or who else falls down throughout the rest of the season. But I think 8-9, 9-8, maybe 10-7. But I think their ceiling is probably 11-6 is what I could see the Eagles being. But that might be asking for too much because this team is very flashy. I don't know which team of the Eagles that you're really going to see in terms of who they play, how they play, and if Jalen Hurts stays healthy the whole year. If he doesn't stay healthy the whole year, that might make a difference. And if that defense doesn't play up to expectations, that might also cause some problems too. But I think an 8-9 record is where I'm going to be leaning towards the Eagles. I don't think they're a phenomenal team. I don't think really anybody in the NFC East is really anything special. But I do think, if anything, I think it's going to be a competition between the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Washington Commanders. I think the Giants may make some noise against some of these teams, but I think they're a year or two away from really taking that next step. As long as their head coach and Brian Dable can do the things that he says he's going to do. But I got 8-9 for the Eagles, 3-3 in the division. I think that's pretty solid, a solid record for them and a solid year for them. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Do you think they'll be better than 8-9? Do you think they're going to be worse than that? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you for the next videos in which we will be doing the NFC North teams next.